Good evening. Welcome to the December 4th regular meeting of the Town of Orange Plan and Zoning Commission. Before we begin tonight's meeting, I'd like to point out the location of our emergency exits. The first one is to my right, your left, in the middle of the room, where most of us enter and exit the building from on a regular basis. The other two, again, are to my right, your left, in the hallway. The first one immediately upon entering the hallway on the left-hand side, and the second one at the end of the hallway. I'd like to ask those seated at the table to please introduce themselves.
Tammy Costello, Zoning Administrative Assistant.
Rick Miagioni.
Paul Kaplan.
Ozzie Parenti.
Judy Smith-Morgan.
Paul Denise, zoning officer.
I'm Commissioner Walter Clark. The first item on tonight's agenda is old business. Just wanted, under old business, I'd like to bring up an update on the ongoing sign regulations. We're scheduled to have a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, and also I believe the Economic Development Corporation is going to join that meeting as well on Tuesday, January the 8th. It's a morning meeting. I'm assuming Mr. Kaplan's going to be there, and Tuesday, January the 8th. And I didn't know if Judy was going to attend.
Yes, I will be attending.
Okay, so Paul, we have to notice that because there's going to be 3 members of the commission there.
Do you know where in Wenbo?
It's going to be at the Marriott. I'm not sure at the time. I believe 8:30, but I'm not sure. I'll have to confirm that. With Paul Grimmer, yeah. He has it scheduled, but I can't recall. Second thing under old business, how are we making out with the scheduling of the interviews with the consultants?
I didn't do that yet. I can do it if, whatever.
I think we should go ahead and do it.
There's only 2.
Did you,
I have a letter drafted.
You had the letter drafted?
I didn't give it to Paul yet, but.
Okay. So why don't we go forward on those 2 items, get the letter out. I think you should have Paul look at it first, and then get the letter out, and we'll also get the meeting scheduled as well. And the last thing that I have under old business is, we had a letter that you had sent out to the people with the Home Depot about the water testing.
Yes.
Any progress?
No.
Have they gotten back to you at all?
No, I called them at least 2 other additional times as well.
Okay. Should probably try to get
I
a hold
want
of
to briefly
somebody else.
discuss it with Vinnie.
Okay.
So I've already mentioned it to him. So.
Okay, yeah, maybe bring it up with Vinnie again and go forward with that as well. Is there anything else under old business? There being nothing, we move on to new business. Does anybody have any statements or comments under new business? There being none, we'll move on to the report of the zoning enforcement officer.
I was shorthanded. Tammy was on vacation for a week and a half. So I spent more time in the office. I started getting back out and getting signs the past couple days. Unfortunately, the Public Works Department was not available for a few consecutive days because of some of the jobs that they had. So, but it's in talking to them, they will be available tomorrow. There's not a lot of illegal signs out there, but there was maybe a handful, maybe 3 or 4 out there that to collect. Apart from that, I made continued inspections out at Springbrook Commons, and even more work's been completed out there. The Bear and Grill did open. We issued them a temporary, no, not temporary. I gave them a real actual CO. The only outstanding work is to hook up the underground irrigation system. That's why we're still holding the bond.
Okay.
The fixtures are there. It's just not hooked up internally in the building. And maybe in the springtime, just take a look at the landscaping one more time to make sure whatever died is replanted.
Yeah.
Apart from that, there's not really much new.
Hey, Paul, on the sign situation, just to refresh my memory, you can walk around with a carrot on your head and be a carrot. That's okay, but you can't have a sandwich board on, right?
Right. I don't know where to cite. There's a lot of these, they dress up as a Statue of Liberty or whatever. I mean, it is a distraction, but I don't know what to cite to show that it's a zoning violation.
I think the opinion of Vinnie has been that is not a violation because it's not a sign. So, I guess.
There have been instances where people have held signs, and that has constituted a violation.
Yes. So you can dress like a carrot, you're okay, but if you hold a sign that says buy carrots,
Right,
you're...
buy any carrot.
Yeah. Okay. The next item on tonight's agenda, are you all done, Paul? is the discussion and review of the November 7th and November 20th minutes. In the November 7th minutes, on the second page, the second paragraph, the sixth sentence up from the bottom of that paragraph, Tammy, the sentence reads, "It is now a wall which brings it into the review process." That should really read, maybe area of consideration or something of that nature, because that's not what triggered it to come into the review process. The fact that they were redoing it is what triggered the review process. And that wall, they were talking about the elimination of the canopy, which was a roof treatment, and therefore that area wasn't part of the consideration. But when they removed the canopy and made it a flat wall, then that brought it into the equation. And on the 7th page, third paragraph, the sentence is the second sentence in. It says, Chairman Clark stated that the applicant decided not to resubmit these applications. I think that should read that the applicant determined that it was not necessary to resubmit the applications. And I have nothing further on November the 11th nor on November the 20th.
Bo, on the 7th, on page 4, 1, 2, 3, I don't know, 4th or 5th down, it said, Mr. Kaplan said it was clear that the applicant had an ability to relocate the emergency access road, but all the alternatives, but all,
Are clearly undesirable.
well, you know what, that's all right.
But should that read the access road or the road?
It really is the road.
It should be the road, so we
Yeah.
just scratched the word access there,
Right.
correct?
Yes.
Are there any other corrections or amendments? Would anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from November 7th and November 20th as amended.
We have a motion, would we care to second it?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. The next item on tonight's agenda is discussion and review of the 2008-2009 TPC budget. She did them combined.
I didn't mention the year, the 2007.
At our last meeting, Paul gave us a summary of the year-to-date expenses, and we also have the proposals. So if we just go down the list, the two number 110s, the beginning, the salary of the zoning enforcement officer and salary of the administrative secretary, those are contractual. The temporary salary for the zoning enforcement officer, that has not been used, but I'm assuming that Paul would like to see that kept in.
Yes.
Okay. So we keep that at 200.
Yes.
Why, Paul, why did they have it, the two different listings? In 06, 07, the actual expenditure was under temporary salary other, and then we approved it $200 under temporary salary zoning enforcement.
Those are two different items. That temporary salary other is for Tammy's overtime
Okay.
when she does meetings. So it does not service a deputy zoning officer with that other line item 120 does.
Okay. So, but the overtime is now a separate line item under 130? Number 130, under overtime, the heading overtime, is that correct?
I believe so, isn't that correct? Yes,
And that's at $250?
yes.
And would you suggest that we keep that at 250, or the year-to-date expenditure is,
It would-
$23.
Yeah, it would seem to be. She actually has a choice under the union agreement.
Okay,
To get comp time or to get
Okay.
the over, so. I
Okay.
mean,
Is the commission in agreement with those so far? The development plan, this commission really is going to be the commission that's going to revise the plan of conservation and development within the next 2 years. So ordinarily, we should really have to designate a significant amount of money for that. However, we do have this plan that's going to deal with probably the biggest area of concern for the revision. So it's my feeling that we can probably get away with having nothing in that line item this year again, because we do have that study that's going to be funded by the state, actually. And that's really going to, going to cover it. I think I should draft a letter to the to Chairman McNabola and let him know that, this is something that's going to come up the following year, that we're going to have a significant increase here, and this is why, because we have to revise it. I think the first time it was done 10 years ago the cost was about $75,000, is that correct?
Yes.
And that was for the plan itself.
Yes.
But you were pretty much starting from scratch at that point, right, Judy? You didn't have a plan at all?
It had been more than 10 years since the
It
prior
had
one.
more than that, yes.
Okay. What does the commission feel about that idea? Leave that line item as zero?
I don't see why not. I mean, I don't like taking money before we need it.
Yeah.
You know.
And as I said, I think that's going to be the major area of concern in town, even when we revise the plan, is the Marsh Hill Road, Edison Road area. So,
I think your point's well taken. Give Kevin a heads up that this is coming down for next year, and it's going to be there.
okay. Any other comments on that line item? We'll move on to planning consultants, which is $335. In 06-07, the actual was $49.50. In 07-08, our current fiscal year, we allowed and were approved for $5,000. Our year-to-date is $3,500. Since we're not halfway through the year yet, I still think we're pretty much on target, because we've had two major applications that have required his services. It's pretty much unlikely that we're going to have two more within the next 6 months or 7 months. So I would guess that we're pretty much on target with the 5,000, and that being the case, I would suggest that we keep it at 5,000 for the request for 08-09.
Do we have the ability to ask developers to pay a portion of our consulting fees for larger applications that require greater expertise or not?
When it pays for an expert, yes.
But not a regular planning consultant?
Well, there's a lot of speculation on that. I don't want to say yes and I don't want to say no. I know that there's some litigation that's been brought in an area of town here with regard to municipalities definitely linking the fees to the costs that are incurred. So, there might be something to talk to Vinnie about.
Okay. Well, we'll discuss that with Vinnie, so I guess for now we'll keep the line item at 5,000. Transcript fees was at zero. We didn't request anything, or nothing was approved for last year. Paul, what is the transcript fee?
That no longer comes out of our account.
Okay.
When we went to litigation, we would have to transcribe all the stenographer's notes. That is no longer charged out of our account. There is
Okay.
a municipal line item that takes care of that.
Okay. The next line item is the public stenographer. The actual expenditure for 06-07 was $33.60. The Board of Finance approved for 07-08 $27.50. Our year-to-date is $11.85. So again, I think we're right on target with that, and I think we should probably keep it at $27.50, or perhaps even drop it down to $2,500. Paul, would you?
Once you drop it, it stays dropped.
Okay.
And I think $27.50 is an accurate
Okay.
representation of what we might
Okay.
spend.
Legal notices. Now that's again a line item at zero. Is that because it was changed how it's funded?
Yes.
Comes out of another account, I think.
Okay. Printing and binding. We have $250 was approved. Year to date is zero. So I look to Paul for some guidance there.
Well, when we're going to reprint books, that entire amount of money is eaten up, and in many cases, we have to go to the Board of Finance to request some additional money. We do recoup that with the sales of books,
Okay,
so we do get revenue back from that.
okay,
But, the figure seems to be okay.
okay. So we'll keep that in at 250 then. Training and conferences is $200. We were, year-to-date, I believe, was $14.55. I think the 200 is reasonable to keep in there as well, though, because there are things that can come up that we may want to attend, or Paul may wish to attend, and, $200 isn't a large sum of money, so I would think that we'd keep that.
These conferences aren't cheap anymore.
Okay.
I'll go, I'll eat up it.
Okay. Auto mileage, I believe that's contractual. Office supplies, approved last year was 150. Year-to-date expense is 3860. Do you anticipate?
Look more to Tammy, that's,
We will be needing to purchase some more things. I don't anticipate any real, anything really large, but, it's year-long.
Okay.
What was the actual, though?
Yeah, well, the year-to-date is 3860. The actual that we spent in 0607 was 130. So I think the 150 is reasonable.
Again, a couple of boxes of pens, and that's,
Yeah. The transit use, again, that comes in one hand and goes out the other, correct?
Yes.
Or actually, it goes out, then goes back in.
yes, what that is the, we're required by the state of Connecticut to charge all land use applications an additional $30. We keep $2 to process that, and $28 goes up to the state. So that budget line item is really a reflection of the revenue we take in and then have to give back to the state.
Okay.
Paul, this is not going to come out right, but is this real money that is given to the zoning department that, let's say, we don't use? In other words, let's say we had a budget of $250 and we use $38. Does that stay in the zoning department's budget?
At the end of the fiscal year, it goes back to the general fund.
Okay.
So we've gone through the figures. Does anybody have any other questions or comments on those? Does our first selectman have any questions or comments on those?
You'll get mine when I go through it.
I see your column there, so. Do we need a motion to forward this to the Director of Finance?
Yeah, you might want to.
I'll move that we forward the interoffice,
You have the figures that we,
the budget that was contained in the interoffice memorandum dated November 8th, 2007, from Pamela Mangini to the, Board of Finance?
yes. Well, it actually goes to the Director of Finance and to the Board of
To-
Finance.
To both.
We have a motion.
I'll second Paul's motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Just one other thing, we've been asked to try to look ahead for a couple of years. We had a department head. We have them every month, and so, that might be the opportunity to address the
Right.
comprehensive town plan.
One of the biggest things with the comprehensive town plan is our lack of good maps, which affects not just us, but all the departments. So I don't know how the town is going to approach that.
That's something that maybe the entire other departments may want to get involved, or I know they do want to get involved, but and a lot of towns now, I require as-built Mylars. A lot of communities are requiring those maps to be digitized so they can be placed right into a database. We have no capability to do that. We have no means of sharing maps or sharing data between departments. Some of these things at some point the state legislature is going to address. Probably not in the next couple of years, but certainly in about 5. That's my understanding anyway.
Paul, have you looked into that to any extent?
Well, we all have, but the initial cost of this thing is it's not cheap to do it.
What would you, just roughly?
I've heard everything from $150,000 to $300,000, $400,000.
You know what? We would
They're really
probably-
depending on the programs.
It's a lot of bake sales.
Well, but we would like to, I think it's probably worthwhile to get a consultant in there to find out what the number would be, to see what we need and how much it would cost. Because it's going to save some money too, because right now you can't transfer the information easily, from what I understand from you, Paul, between the departments. And to go digital is going to be the way to proceed.
Right.
I see Jimmy's hand go up.
Well, remember when the fire marshal, he's working on that now with pictometry.
Yes.
I mean, so there is something.
Yeah, this really involves all the departments. I mean, the police
And the
department, fire
the
department.
assessor's office approached a number of departments as well. And, you know, at some point, you know, the town's gonna have to do it, and it's gonna make sense to do it, but at what point, you know, it's hard to say, and, you know, these programs are changing constantly, and some of them are getting a little cheaper, some of them are getting a little more expensive, and,
Like that commercial on TV, we're working on it.
Okay.
problem is, it's very labor intensive to get that data into a system. That's, you know, it's not even so much the cost of these programs, but the cost of getting somebody to physically sit down, feed those documents in, and put that information in there.
Are there any other questions on the budget? We had the motion, it's been seconded, it's been approved. So I guess at this time, that concludes, no? Okay. Well, that concludes our regular portion of the meeting. We do have an executive session. Are all the members of Wetlands here? No? That's scheduled to begin at 8 o'clock, so I guess we'll wait until then. I guess we'll take a brief recess till 8 o'clock? No. Yeah. Okay. At this point, I'd like to ask for a motion to go into executive session to invite the members of the Inland Wetlands Commission, the 2 town attorneys, the first selectman, zoning enforcement Paul Denise, and as administrative assistant Tammy Costello.
Is that it?
I believe that's it. Is there anybody else that we need?
We gotta call a meeting to order, this is Wetlands.
Okay. Okay.
Are we live now? Yeah, you're okay. I'd like to call the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission meeting to order, December 4th, Tuesday, special meeting, 8 p.m., lower level in the meeting room in Town Hall.
Move that we go into executive session with all the parties that you previously
I
mentioned.
have a question for if we're going to invite the applicant and his representatives into executive session, should we invite them in now even though they're not going to be in the room at this point?
You can invite them in whenever you like, and you can do when you're calling.
Okay, so it's not necessary to be in the motion, okay. We have a motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Now, does Wetlands have to do the same, or are we? Okay.
At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to put the special meeting of Inland Wetlands into executive session.
Make a motion to go to executive session.
Thank you, Rick. Would somebody second that, please?
Second.
Drew, second. Leslie, thirds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody against? No. Unanimous. Thank you.
And zoning is out of executive session at 20 past 10.
Inland Wetlands is coming out of an executive session at 10:20 p.m.
At this point, planning and zoning has concluded all the articles on our agenda, and I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
That I do. Move to adjourn?
Do we have a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Meeting adjourned at 10:21.
Similar for Inland Wetlands, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Walter?
Supposed to be adjourned?
Walter, someone second? Second. Thank you very much. Drew? Good night, everyone. I presume everyone voted in favor.